to not really integrate myself into the community, to become a part of the community. That has to be a part of police work. If that doesn't become a part of police work, all of this is really going to continue because there's no other way around it.
Imagine the relationships you could build if you had to work in the community one of your days.
Yeah.
You know, imagine the people you would build relationship with. Your job would be easier, first off.
Way easier.
And it would be safer.
Way easier.
Safer
way
for the community, safer for you in general, and it would just be overall I would think overall just a better situation. Absolutely. And it will allow everybody to live in a more peaceful way of doing it. There's still going to be bad things that go on.
Things are going to always
happen. Know,
but it's about how are these things being responded to.
Yes.
And by who. Because when you have some person responding to some kid walking in the street and he ends up dead, I don't think that happens with a person from that place who has to deal with that community as a part of that community. Because if you live, maybe you don't even have to live there, but if you're from there and if you have ties there and things like that, you can't just go around doing stuff like that because you know that the community, the darker aspects of the community will probably come after you. But when you have this person who's removed from the situation, this person gets to do that to the person. Then they get to go off into their suburban house and sleep and be like, oh, well, I'm away from that.
Imagine if you worry about how your family's treated, right? Yeah. You know, your family would be respected in a certain way.
Yeah.
You know, and like that kind of thing. And that gives you a certain self-responsibility of how you're doing things.
Plus, at the same, I think the part that people really need to consider is there really is, and I think Hollywood has done a extensive job at exploring this area of fuzziness where there is a thin line between a police officer and a criminal. They work in similar brain spaces. They think, they're trying to sometimes do things, like I said, outside of the law that I guess are to some people would look like, oh, well, that's criminal, no matter who's doing it. When you see people getting beat up, I just saw something, some girl was drunk at the beach, and there's a picture.
Oh, I saw that one.
You saw that where the cop's over?
Yeah, I didn't watch the video, but I saw it. He's like there getting ready
He's
to.
like here. Yeah. I'm like, this is a criminal with a badge on about to punch a girl in the face. Like.
And it was over. I didn't read it.
Know what it was over.
It was over like something really small.
Yeah, I mean, under what reasoning would you have to punch a girl in the face? Like, under what I know she didn't have a gun or nothing.
If we didn't have a badge on, me, you did that, we go to jail.
Yeah. Like, if I saw a girl do something that I didn't like, I just ran up on her and just got over top of her and punched her in the face. There's no question about what would happen to me. But there is a question of, oh, is this guy just going to go on
a leave for a week and then paid leave?
Yeah, paid leave. Is he going to get a little slap on the wrist? Is he going to?
And those guys are getting crazy, and then they get crazy pensions when they retire, crazy pensions.
Let alone the fact that people have to remain questioning of police officers because police officers are not free of corruption. Anybody who knows anything about it understands that there's been large-scale corruption in so many different police stations.
I look at police departments and think about like my workplace, right? So how many people at your workplace are good people that do the right thing, and how many are bad people that either, there's the in-between that are just people trying to do. But so now there's a workplace is the police station. So how many of those are that kind of, like
it's that same dynamic.
It's the same thing.
Oh, I think that because you know how it is in the workplace. I was just explaining to my mother-in-law what it was like when I was like working in a place where there was people there who felt like they were going to be doing that for the rest of their lives, and the kinds of things you hear just in listening and stuff like that. Then, some people, you can get a feel like, man, I don't know, that dude right there, he might maybe really kill somebody. Like that guy,
put a gut badge and a gun in that guy's hand.
Really rape somebody, stuff like that. Like you hear these kinds of things, and you're right. Like if that's happening amongst just regular people in a police station, that kind of same situation is happening, and there is there's an emphasis on don't turn on him.
It's a code.
It's a code. They have their code of, he's another cop.
You don't want to be the rat.
He's the blue, the blue protection shield or whatever. Yeah. It's like that is the beginnings of how probably criminal situations work. They're like, okay, we see somebody doing something, but we're not going to tell on him because he's one of us, and there's a brotherhood factor.
It's like one gang arresting the other gang.
It is a gang. It's really
you know what I mean? Like that's what it is.
It's a gang. Does your gang have power?
It's the only difference is one has a badge and a gun.
One has a badge. The other one, all he has is a code that exists, and he doesn't get to make the rules, but the police are the arm, the law enforcement arm of the people who get to make the rules. Even though those people who make the rules usually seem to be kind of psychotic.
Yeah,
they don't really care about the rest of what's going on. Like they still let corporations do what they do. They still let they make rules for them. So it's like if you have,
they turn it into profit.
Yeah.
For themselves.
Yeah, if you have psychotic people making rules, I mean, maybe some do look really good, but then when you get into a situation, you're like, oh, you might have came out with some good ideas, but you also throw people in cages because there's a plant in their pocket.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's like those kinds of things just don't make any sense.
The war on drugs is crazy. If you can watch on the History Channel, and I don't, it's hard to say what's true on the History Channel and what's not, but it's, I can't believe some of the things they actually said on the shows they admitted to, like on the war on drugs, the on the History Channel, where they're talking about like the CIA and places bringing drugs for the cartels over here, and people don't realize there's a lot of banks, like big banks that we use every day, that have been busted laundering money for drug cartels.
Yeah.
And they've gotten fines. Nobody's ever gone to jail.
No, they don't go to jail.
They don't go to jail.
They're part of they
pay $1 billion fine and they go about their business.
They have their money they set to the side.
Yeah,
because they know that it's coming.
Yep.
And then they're like, all right. And then they continue doing what they do.
Absolutely.
And
but if for us little folk, if we did that, we go to jail.
Yeah. And that's why, I always say like the story about the drug dealer Freeway Ricky Ross. I don't know if you've ever seen anything about that, but
I've seen that one.
It's an interesting story that shows you how things that happen on governmental international levels can eventually affect somebody who's the furthest away from it. Like in his situation, he was a drug dealer, and his connection was actually, I might be getting this wrong, but I don't think so. but his connection was actually he was CIA.
Okay.
He was at least getting money from CIA, and then this all got into like the Contra war with Oliver North and all of that kinds of stuff about how they pretty much were funding an illegal war on drug profits. Some of what he did, they discovered in court, and that some of what he did actually was funding it. This is just a guy, just a dude who was like, he was illiterate for most of his life. Like, I don't know if he learned to read until he went to jail.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy wanted to be like a tennis player and stuff. And, eventually he got into selling, and he was making like, he was one of those people like making $1 million a day, and he got really far with it, but then of course it all came crashing down.
Right.
That's what happens. But Oliver North, who was part of funding an illegal war, nothing ever,
what's funny about
shows,
talking about Oliver?
Show.
Oliver North just got appointed to. Trump just put him in charge of something. I forget it was.
It just came. I remember seeing that. And I was like, yeah, but that makes nothing. Nothing that he does anymore, I don't think, surprises me, because it's like, it's clear that he is some sort of he is a president for the age of reality television.
I honestly think he's the biggest distraction. Like, he was put in to be a distraction.
He sort of, and that's a very.
I call him the Trojan horse, because like, they put him in, right? Nobody's paying attention. They put him in. We argue more. Yeah. I think we argue about, now I'm only 40 years old, and I've only really like paid attention to politics in the last 8 or 9 years. But from the times I can remember, we argued more. There was more arguments between different candidates. Yeah. Than these two, and people get mad at each other.
Yeah, they do, and they that's because it's politics. It's about putting you on the side and letting you argue with somebody else.
I think they do that intentionally. I think they put him in, and they knew he was crazy, and like, they put him in, and think about the distraction he has caused. Think about all the things they're probably doing in the background.
Just wild stuff, like everything that it's kind of like a movie about like a president. Like, it's a movie or something. Like, yeah. It's like, then he got caught up with the porn star, and then he said something. He was making fun of these people, and it's like, like I said, he's a president for a particular age of people who see the world and really want They want to be shocked. People want to see. People have always kind of wondered, what would it be like if the president just said wild stuff and just said it on social media and stuff like that. And now you have that dude, and he has to be given. You need a person who can kind of affect the people in various different ways, just like how Obama affected people in a particular way in his time. People were like, oh, I remember how angry I was at that time, because I was looking at the way that people, definitely like older people in the black community, were looking at it, and they were like, "Oh man, here he is! Like, you finally got somebody in there who's gonna understand my situation in life." And I was so angry for a time, because I was like, he's not that. That thing that you think he's like this like black messiah who's come to say, hey, equality for all people. Like, no, he's not that. Like, he's not. And I remember I was watching that inauguration. There was this old lady, this old black lady, and she had this look in her face, like she was like, oh, it's fine.
Yeah.
I was just like, they have to make, like, these people have to be groomed in certain ways. They have to be able to represent certain ideals within the nation in order to embody that. So that those people, it's kind of like a merry-go-round, you know. They'd be like, "Oh, well, last time let's give one for the black people. Now this time let's give one to like the poor disenfranchised white dude who thinks that the world is after him." Like
it's a pendulum.
Next one, most likely, in my opinion, just because of the way that society seems bent and stuff, it will probably be on the edge of let's give one for the women. Like that's you know, I feel like that's just the way that it works. It's just a let's pacify whoever is doing like the most bitching at a time.
Yeah.
Let's pacify them with this person who embodies what they want, and then we go on with our business, and they keep saying they're all hyped up, and then when he leaves,
we're busy.
They'll be like, oh.
We're busy arguing about the same stuff from a different side of it
It's
for the last 30 years.
It's because people are children. They know this is the same thing. This is the politics is like an iPad that you give to children. It's just like, here, just argue over this a little bit, and then the kids they argue over it. Next thing you know, you got what you wanted to do done. You're like, oh, it worked well, you know, and that's how they see it. They're like, oh yeah, all this stuff, it works well because we're over here doing big people stuff. These people have no understanding of their reality. They don't even care. They just want to get a new car in a few years.
I mean, the wars haven't changed. We're still killing people bombing people in the Middle East. That there's no difference there. They ain't talking about any of the people that are the amount of people that die in the Middle East from like I can't even imagine. Like you go to sleep in the Middle East in some places, you may not wake up the next day, and that's how you're going to sleep. And like that's been going on for how long? Afghanistan has been, I think 2002 or 2003 we're there. Whenever after 9/11. And that's how long we've been there, and that's it's just mind-boggling.
What do you do to a person if not? What happens to the person over there who lives through the missile strike, who picks up their family member's body parts?
Yeah.
Like what do you do? Like to that person, like that person is. First of all, I can only think about how I would respond to something like that. I would be like, whoever did this is my mortal enemy for all time.
100%.
I will teach my children and their children that this thing right here. Do you know what they just did?
Yeah,
they incinerated your family. You know what I mean? Like so, to me, I think.
And they're over there, and you got to be like, why? That's the bigger why.
I think that's the big question everywhere in the world. People are like, why do people keep popping up who claim to have the best interests of some people in mind, who end up going somewhere, killing a whole bunch of people, and then one day it's looked at like it's a success.
Yeah,
and it's like. I will never be convinced that the people of the world want that for the world.
No, I don't think so.
They're doing this for purposes outside of humanity, which is the monetary aspect.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And just I think just the power aspect of that. Right now they're trying to, they have to keep a paradigm intact. They have to. Because it's becoming way too clear, I think, to all kinds of people who are becoming educated more by the internet.
Absolutely.
I think the internet was the best educational tool ever created.
Absolutely.
And I think now people are starting to say, like, wait, we don't really have to live like this. So now, we're in the postponing the future stage. We're saying, hey, we know that a better world could happen, but look, we don't really want that to happen because we run this. And you're trying to. It's kind of like with cars and stuff. How people have known for years that there was much better ways to travel, much better ways to make cars, all kind. But none of those things are a part of our lives, and we're still running off of things that like we used in like the 1960s.
Well, they buried the electric car.
Yeah,
Their electric car was in. They have people, and it's kind of scary. But some of these people actually are murdered, and they have people that have copyrighted cars that have run off of water and run off of compressed air, and they don't need,
people who come, the ingenuity of the world, the part of the world, I think, the part of the world that wanted to see the world get better were either, what seems to happen to these people is you get in prison, or you get dead. That's what happens.
Yeah.
You start messing around with the fabric of what's going on here. You start to find out that there's
some elements.
It's a scary thing to realize that you live in a world where actually you could have such a great idea one day that it gets you killed.
It's crazy.
Like, that's the wildest part I think about life, like, kind of in these times, and who knows how long it's been like that. Like, I mean, Jesus said, love people and stuff, and people killed him. So, that's you find that same narrative all throughout history of people who are trying to make a better world come around with the idea, someone's threatened by that idea, and then they have to kill that person, or they have to suppress what he's done. Like, it's kind of like how I feel with what's happening with things like even like Nikola Tesla. Like, he's a person who has an indelible mark on the way that things have been done in this world, and the way that people, like, I don't know, people kind of treat him like he's like,
people don't even know about him.
It's like he's like a vampire. Like,
if you said that name to a group of 20 people, probably like one or two might know who that is.
Yeah. And that's, I think and really what that becomes is people who are conspiracy minded people.
Yes.
And people who have actually looked into, like, why is the world the way that it is, and how did it get like this? And
I mean, I didn't even know who that was until I started, like, conspiracy stuff, and then you realize and you hear people talk about him and what he tried to accomplish.
And the fact that this is a place where you can pay the ultimate price for trying to bring light to the world. That's, like I said, this is what I think is at the core of the entire conspiracy theorist mind, is that we want to know why the world isn't the place that we think it should be. And that kind of that it's that thought that kind of is like a splinter. You start and then you ask the question, and then you start one day trying to find the answer.
Yeah.
Like, and you're like, oh, okay, well, it's pretty much not the way that we think it should be, because money in this world is more important to people than life. That's the ultimate answer I get. That there's people care more about wealth and the appearance of worth than they do life.
Yeah.
And that's a civilizational mistake. That's something no politics can cure. No politics can cure a broken philosophy about what life is and what it's about. Like, because that transcends politics. That becomes, like I said, it's a civilizational situation. Until somebody comes and says, "Hey, I'm running for president, and nobody in the world is going to be hungry," I don't really have anything to listen to anybody else.
I don't think, if you think about it, if you're the president of the United States, in my opinion, they're selected, not voted. And,
I feel like that too. That's usually how.
Did you ever hear George Carlin, the comedian?
Yeah, that's. I mean, that's.
And he pretty much is like, listen, they bring you in as president, they take you a back room, they show you a video of JFK's assassination. They say, any questions? What are you going to do? You have a family. You either listen or you don't, and there's two outcomes.
You have a role to play. And if you're going, you either play it or you can die, and there's enough evidence to suggest that can really happen. Yeah. So, that's why the president, to me, I don't have. There was such an illusion about that office when I was a younger person. Like, I was like, oh man, I would want to be that one day, maybe, or something like that. Now nobody really wants to be president. Nobody, because it's just like, well, for what? What am I going to do but be the custodian of some foul situation that I actually want to change, but I don't have the power, or, you know what I mean? I don't have the power to do it, and he doesn't. And no president has ever had the power to do it. Yeah. Nope. Which lets me know this is not about what I don't argue politics with people, because to me, like you said, I'm from the George Carlin school of all of these people are criminals, and in time I think people may know it. People may know it in like 60 to 100 years. They'll look back at the time. They'll be like, oh, all these people were just criminals, and they just convinced everybody that they were running things in their favor. Right. But it's hard for the average person, I think, to see that. They still get caught up in they've been put on the pole, they've been put in politics, and now this guy embodies everything that I am and want, and I'm going to ride with that, because really it's not really even about people's politics. It's about, I think this last case proved that it could actually be a popularity contest. It could just be, hey, everybody knows who this dude is, and he all he has to do, he's a great manipulator. He's one of the greatest con artists of all time.
Absolutely.
He's
been doing it for years. He's been in business doing it.
People can say that, right, and then have so much evidence to suggest that it's the truth, that he's one of the greatest con artists ever, and that somebody actually picked that dude to be the president, lets you know that you can. There's so much varying room for people's, mentalities. You don't, to some party they'd be insane. They'd be like, hey, that dude is a con artist and all this stuff. Would you vote for him? Most people, well, not most people. The idea people be like, no.
Like, how did you get there? Like, how did we end up like the mentality that you ended up with these two people at the end? One is just as corrupt as the other. And then you have to somehow pick between evil and evil.
KRS-One said on those, I think I was on Higher Level. He said, whether or not if you vote for the lesser of two evils, you still vote for evil.
Exactly.
Like, what do you? So it's just like, oh well, he was pro-choice and he's pro-life, and it's like. No, these people. What you really don't understand is that these people don't really mean us any good. Like they don't. Like they don't. They're removed from you. Like you, They live lives that it's like very rarely have anything to do with you or anybody you know.
It's like it's two countries. It's the country of the top and the country of the middle and the bottom.
And in reality, I think it's the world. Like we're a world. We're up here. We experience these things. Now there's a world beneath that, and then there's so many different worlds beneath that, to the point where you get to the dude who lives in what was like a dirt floor and stuff like that, and then beneath that there's the world of somebody who doesn't have like any possessions. Yeah. So, here we are. We are at, we're in class warfare. It's the idea of class will always be just like race and religion, one of the greatest dividers of people.
Absolutely.
You know, the fact that a person can look at somebody and be like, "Oh, I don't think I should talk to him because he clearly doesn't make enough money."
Yeah.
It's like that's like a mental virus.
I don't know. I watched this movie one time. It had DMX in it, right? And it was like I always thought it was like kind of it was pretty awesome. But he's
which one was it?
I think it was the one with Steven Seagal in it. I can't remember. And he was maybe, and he was like
one of them type.
He was like he was undercover, or maybe was he undercover? I can't. No. He was a businessman. He got made a lot of money, and something happened to his brother, I think, and he came back to help or to like exact revenge.
Yeah.
And he goes into the Lamborghini place, right? And he goes in with what's that guy's name? He's on I think. I can't remember. He's a comedian, and he was in it with him.
I think it was Anthony Anderson.
That's it. Yeah, and they go into the Lamborghini place, and the guy's like, I'm like, what are you doing in here? He's like opening the doors, turning the car on, revving it. He's like, get out of here. And they just open the thing of money, right?
Yeah.
And like, I just like, like people look at him like, what are you doing in here? You shouldn't even be on. Are you working in the detail part?
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff.
And it makes you understand, like a situation like that makes you understand that what is class. Class is. People tend to think class has something to do with like your morality and how like you treat people. But truthfully, class is just is about, do you have enough money to do X, Y, Z? Do you have enough money to do that? Because if so, then you're in that class of people. Because the reality of the situation is that class, a higher class of people, could be filled with people who actually think like low-life criminals. You know what I mean? Like they could really just still think that way.
Yeah.
But I have enough money. Do you have enough money to do this and that? And I mean,
I think a lot of times there's just a very fine line, like you said, between the criminal and the non-criminal, and money can push that line a certain way, but it also at the beginning, one guy gets in trouble for doing fraud in the stock market, the other guy doesn't. Why?
Yeah.
He's like, the Volkswagen got in trouble for all the diesel stuff.
Yeah.
Like I always said to my friend, I was like, listen, they just pissed off the wrong politician. It had nothing to do with what they did. It had to do with they pissed off the wrong politician. That politician got pissed off and said, listen, we're gonna bring down the hammer on you.
That's fine. The little personal things that happen that really can dictate bigger things. You never know how these things really happen. And I can't help but to think that definitely in America that there's the inconvenient truth that people don't want to understand, and that is that this place was founded by people who were on one level very brave and for their voyage and things like that. But ultimately, we built this on crime. And as long as this is built on crime and crime is the foundation, then crime will always be the determining factor of this
Absolutely.
place. And that is something that like I was talking about with the mansion, that's at the core of the room. That this entire thing, the entire infrastructure of this place.
Okay, go ahead.
But the entire infrastructure of this place is built on a situation that most people are afraid to even look at. They're afraid to look at the fact that there was an act of genocide that happened, followed by a brutal enslavement of people. And I think after that, people think, well, the brutality stopped. But the brutality never stopped. And for a lot of black people, we have a lot of history of that brutality when people don't think that it's happening at all. Like, my my grandfather, he was born in, I think, 1896, and
Your grandfather
my
was?
grandfather was 60 when he had my dad.
Wow.
Yeah, so my dad's born in 56. He's born in 96, 1896. Now I'm 2 generations removed from a person who was born in the decade when the most lynchings ever in this country happened. So that's 2 generations. People, that's all that separates.
Yeah.
So for people to think that the past is so far removed and in the past,
Right.
this is 2 generations of
That's
people.
kind of crazy.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you think about the fact that, we keep thinking that these things don't have any influence on the way that things happen. If that can happen in only 2 generations of people, then the mentalities of that time, how far in the past are they actually? If I could see where you might be able to root something like that out in who knows 10 generations or something like that. But to try to root something like that out, or the residual effects of that kind of thing,
I think it's the mentality though of like we almost like we need it now. So we're living in the moment, as opposed to we don't realize 100 years in the history of the world is not that long ago.
Yeah, and that's the truth. We need things now. We're a bunch of like slave zombies. We don't.
Yeah.
We don't. We don't want. They don't want you to have time to reflect.
Right.
Because if you reflect, you will realize that you have far less control over your life than you actually want. And then, at that point in time, you'll begin to do things to take yourself out of their ability to enslave your willpower. So, like you said, they want to keep you in the now. But when you reflect on things, and when you value history, you start to realize, like, I remember, like, the first time I ever, like, saw a picture of, like, a lynching. And I was just like really? Like, you have, like, kids and people posing and doing,
like it was almost like not a holiday, but like a thing, like they celebrated as like a thing to do.
It was a thing to do. There was times where people were brought in. They were gonna, they'd have the lynching, so they'd bring people in to like have like a picnic. Like they would, like people would come on trains and things. Like, I think I read something. I'm pretty sure I read something that said that like kids in certain places would get out of school early so they could get on trains to go to this thing where there's this dude hanging up. And the things that were done in these places were like, they would, like, all right, they would, in some cases, now this is after they burned this body up. So you got this charred cadaver. I'm sure not all of them were burned up, but you got this mangled body, this dead person laying there, and people are taking pictures with this thing. You know what I mean? Like they got their kids there. What I heard somebody say, it's a lady named Joy DeGruy. She's a professor. I forget exactly where. But she was saying, like, she was showing this picture, and she was like, everybody in this picture is traumatized. But they're all, like, the little girl's smiling, and the guy's looking, pointing up at it, and just, everybody there is traumatized. But no one is going to deal with the trauma of that situation. So, when these things would be hanging up, they would be cutting off body parts and stuff, ears and all kinds of stuff, It takes a certain something to cut off a dude's penis. Yeah. And what they would do is then they throw it, like, out in the grass, and then, like, somebody be sitting there having a ham sandwich, talking to their wife, say, "Hey, honey, why don't you go grab that go grab that ear? We can like hang it up, put it on the mantle or something like that." You know, that's the kind of sick kind of situation. And the fact, all right, now there's no police coming to break this situation up.
Well, police are probably there.
The police are probably there.
Yeah.
Nobody's coming to break this situation up. So that lets you know that there's a normalcy going on in this country at that time, as far back in my life as 2 generations ago.
Yeah.
There's an element where this is normal. And to think that that can go away in the span of like even 100 years. It just doesn't seem to me, because you take a long time to get to that point where it's that acceptable, where it's just like, oh well, you know, this is what we do. We bring kids here. It's a celebration. Like that's a different warped situation. When you look into the eyes, if you ever see one of them pictures, look into the eyes of these.
It's
people,
evil, man. It's the
like,
eyes look evil.
They look, but the sad part is like, you can see evil or something in somebody's eyes, but you can also see like a little girl in having extravagant fun. That's the darker part. That's the darker part. The part that, not that somebody is looking like, oh, I'm doing something wrong or he's clearly evil or something, but the fact that some people normalized it to the point where it's like, this is enjoyable.
And these are the people running the country.
Yeah, and these
with that same mentality.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know how many people who ran the country participated in stuff like that. But the fact that this stuff went so long without having any like legal
major arrest or
situation,
something.
The fact that went on lets you know that when you ask the question of how did these people in Baltimore get so devalued, that kind of stuff is part of the story.
Yeah.
The story is so long and so convoluted that most people in this day don't have enough of an ability to even think about things on that time span. Like it's too long and laborious. Like it's too hard to spell out, because it is. While it is simple, it is complex. Like it's complex in a way of how did we get to this point where black people have to openly say that our lives matter.
Yeah.
How do you get to a point where you had to say that to a person? Like in a time that people say is some of the best racial harmony times ever. It's a story, and that story, as long as that story is still relevant and still continuing, you will always have people ready to protest that. And in the NFL, that is, I know some people were appalled at that, but I was actually proud because I thought that component of the athlete had actually died. The person who was afraid, who wasn't afraid to take a stand and use their place in life,
absolutely,
as a place to promote their ideas.
I mean, the fact that they're willing to, they got to know that could affect their career.
They absolutely
and
know. They're
willing to take that sacrifice and say, I'm going to stand up for this because I think this is wrong. That is almost, to me, that's more patriotic than, that's them caring about for the people and the country. That's almost more patriotic than anything. They're willing to sacrifice, listen, they're making millions